Welcome in, everybody. Today, I got Cody with me, right? So Cody is our director of marketing. She's going to be doing more of this with me, playing a little ping pong, kind of adding her sights from the marketing end of things, and also just kind of helping me get my points across, helping us take questions. I think we would like to get to a point where we start to bring people on, whether video or just audio, so you all can ask questions. So she's going to be helping me out. So Cody, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me. And I'm really looking forward to connecting with everyone. If you have any questions along the way, feel free to ping me or post it in the Q&A and we'll make sure we get to it. Excited to have these
Awesome.
conversations.
All right. So the way we're going to do this today is I'm going to start off, right? We have a topic, right? We have the two biggest pain points in events and how to handle them. And then we're going to roll into kind of discussing each of those individually, some thoughts that I have. And pretty much the way we're going to start these shows is kind of just me diving into the topic and talking about the topic, maybe 5-10 minutes, and then expanding on it. But during those times, put your Q&A in the Q&A below, and we'll sort of roll in and get to those after we get through this first part of the session. So anything that's coming to mind, anything that you're thinking of, always happy to entertain anything in the chat, but put it down in the Q&A. And then once we're done with that, do a little Q&A. And then we're going to skip around some. We have a couple different things that we want to kind of discuss, some insights. Just these are things that we're basically gaining from conversations, consultative discussions with our clients, actual progress conversations and sort of discovery conversations, post-analysis conversations that we're having with our clients. So just ideas and insights drawn from there. So where we're going to start is we came across a post. The woman's name is Dalia El Gazar, and she looks like she has her own agency. And actually, one note on this, now that I'm thinking about it, is there really is some good event content right now, Cody, that's coming out. I'm seeing more and more people start to produce content in our space. So you're getting different viewpoints from, Jody just wrote, love Dahlia, right? So you're starting to get different viewpoints and content. We've talked to Julius Solaris, like Julius is kind of to a degree becoming a bit of a news and information source, right? You have people that are on the tech side, people that are on the agency side, people that are on the event planning side, people on my side in design and production. So it's cool to see the content that's coming out. I follow a lot of people. So anyway, seeing Dahlia's posts, and she was talking about when she's speaking to her clients. I believe Dahlia is on the agency side. She has her own agency. She was talking about overhearing and talking to her clients, and that her clients are really struggling and facing with two key things, right? So those two key things that they are facing and struggling with is event ROI and post-event engagement. So these are two things we've talked about a lot ad nauseum. They are definitely two struggle points when it comes to events, right? So let's kind of break those down. I'm going to give you my thoughts on those. So let's talk about why it matters, right? Because I think it's important to understand why something matters and kind of the causes and effects that are going on. So ROI, right? Like having the ability to create ROI or decipher through ROI from your events is obviously important because it has a factor in dictating budget every single year. When you go back to your CFO or you go back to your CMO or whomever is releasing that budget to you. Resources, right? If you're seeking more resources, hard to ask for more resources if you're not creating ROI. I would say job security even, right? So when you are creating ROI and you're contributing to initiatives and pipeline, and you are taking this capital expenditure that is events, and you're saying, hey, look, I deployed $1 million last year at X events, but I created $10 million in pipeline and $4 million in revenue, right? I mean, that's pretty cool to be able to say. Or you could, that's very high level. You could detail in further saying events contributed to X pipeline and X revenue, because it's not always a direct source. Post-event engagement, right? On the second piece, why does it matter? Well, it matters in the sense of ROI as well as, like, when we talk about sales, event people, we talk all the time. We have to, you have to work with sales. So post-event engagement has a little bit to do with marketing, has a little bit to do with sales. And I would actually argue, not talked enough about, it has to do with events as well. I think there's a piece out there of digital fatigue, right? So post-event engagement is difficult. And I think one of the things that people need to begin talking about is closing the loop on events, right? So you're running these events, you're having these conversations, you're spending this money, you're doing all these things to plan and prepare and execute, and you have to close the loop, right? I think that's really, really important. So the next piece I want to get into is just a little bit of like, and this is just solely my opinion. And I think some of this you all have heard before, and it ties into event ROI and post event engagement. I think it's two important things and things that people are struggling with, right? So one thought I have is that events are not a single point in time. And I think too many people look at them like a single point in time, right? Heavy planning, 3-4 days, and then out of there. I think there's far more to events to that, whether you have multiple events that run into each other, hybrid events, in-person events. You can tie events back to touch point with sales, touch points with marketing. And I think if you are looking at events as a single point in time, right, I think that is a recipe for executing, acting, and kind of behaving in a very transactional way. And I think that is a huge miss when it comes to events. My next point here is ties with that, was that events are really one touch point in many. And what I mean by touch points is events are unique in the sense that it could be your first ever touch point. It could be the first time you've ever met. You could be with somebody in an event where you're smack in the middle of a deal. Maybe it's a prospect that's interested in your software. Maybe it's a massive partnership, right? It's a massive partnership. You're middle of negotiation, or you're in the middle of, considering merger and acquisition at a super high level. It doesn't matter. You could be smack in the middle of a deal. And I think the other thing is it can be catalyst at the end of the line for closing a deal. And I use the term catalyst all the time because I think that's how we need to start looking at events in order to produce ROI, in order to get in line to be able to do post-show engagement to close the loop, right? So
It
let's talk
also,
about,
Matt, by the way, before I move on,
yeah, good.
I think another component that sometimes gets overlooked is the ability to deepen the relationships that you already have with existing
Yes.
clients. Like, how can you raise their LTV, right? How can you drive more sales? How can you engage with them to show them even more capabilities and upsell them?
Yeah.
I think that often not necessarily forgotten, but it's not the top of the list, but that might drive more revenue at times than other scenarios. So.
No, I love that. And I think that people miss that, Cody, right? They miss that. And it's this concept of like, don't be transactional, right? And I think it comes back to, like I said, use your events as a catalyst, right? And we can get into a whole conversation. I have a little bit here about like leads and people being too focused on leads. But essentially what you're talking about is something we talk much about, which is pipeline impact, right? So not being so focused on leads and attribution and, hey, we met this person here and then we sold them 90 days later, right? Like that stuff happens, but it's not the core of what happens at events. And people miss that. People think you spend all this money, you go to an event, you meet new people, you sell them 90 days later, and then there's your ROI. That is not how it works. It does in pockets, but it's not how it works. So what is pipeline impact, right? Pipeline impact is what you have to figure out about what is happening at your show. And you can have different things happen at different shows. So let's run through the list of some of these things. And if I miss any, let me know, Cody. Definitely leads, new leads, right? People you don't know that you're entering into your sphere as a lead, hot, lukewarm, cold, whatever it may be. New pipeline, new opportunity, like actual opportunity where someone's like, I am interested in working with you, and an opportunity is created, right? Talking with your customers, and from those conversations and from those touch points at your event, increasing your average customer spend. That is a pipeline impact, right? You are now adding more opportunities from current customers in there. Another one I love, and it's similar in that sense, is a resurgence of old customers. How many times I told a story maybe 2-3 weeks ago about this with us purposely. And I think you have customers that are maybe not spending as much as they used to, not utilizing you as much as they used to, maybe don't know additional features, benefits, offering services that you have. You see them at a show, you get them to a dinner, you see them in line at coffee, at the bar at night, in the gym in the morning, whatever. Conversation, something happens, they now come back around. They're like, oh, I forgot we haven't been using you for this. That's like old customer resurgence. Another one I love is deal acceleration, right? Are you getting in front of people that are in your pipeline? And then after that event, because you've done such a good job, those deals accelerate. I always use the example of Kat Leong at Gainsight. They run their host event. She found that their deals accelerate by 40% from people who attend. Pretty strong stat right there. So those are examples of pipeline impact. You have to, like, people get very stuck on like leads, 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 leads. No, take a step further than leads. What is happening? Current customers, new business, deal acceleration, average sale increases. There's so many nuances and ancillary things. All those things I just listed are the reason why people love events. They're the reason why people say, they blanket, I'm networking. Oh, like I love the event, right? Because all that stuff happens. And I think pipeline impact is a big piece of understanding which is happening at your show. What's happening? What is going on? And then where I would go from there is thinking about, okay, now how do I strategize around it? You may not see any customers at your one show, not a single customer that you currently work with. You may not see them at one of these shows. Fine. It might be all new stuff, new prospects, new opportunities, or maybe you see a ton of customers. Maybe you see both, whatever it may be, whether it's partnerships, distributor channels. If you're looking for membership signups, trial signup increases in this gap from, of time, sure, you just have to know what that is. So that kind of brings me back to not treating events transactionally and viewing them transactionally, right? It's super important to not treat it like a flea market where you're trying to sell somebody a pot or a knife, right? Like that's transactional. The events are different. We have to view them more long-term, more relationship building, and treat events as this opportunity to have the event be the catalyst that sparks business down the line for you, right? It's a part of making an impression. It's part of what I think brand awareness truly is. People say brand awareness, you think Nike on a billboard. That's not what majority of brand awareness is in B2B. Majority of brand awareness in B2B is people like might have heard about you or kind of know about you. And I think like what I'm saying by brand awareness is like, you're walking a show floor, like you kind of know who a company is, or maybe you've seen them before, but once you interact and you engage with them, you start learning what they're all about. Or you see their booth, you see their presence, you go to their dinner, you go to their party. Those are tells. It tells, and that is your brand awareness. That becomes the experience that somebody has had with you. So my last point on this is events are an opportunity to build relationships. Relationships turn into pipeline and close the revenue, right? So it's not viewing it transactionally, and it's getting to the point to where you understand that your event is an opportunity to build relationships, and your event is an opportunity to be a catalyst for either a new opportunity to be like, wow, you guys are great. I'm a hot lead. Or, wow, hey, I've been a hot lead. I would love to be an opportunity. I actually have an opportunity for you right now. Okay, boom, that's new pipeline. Or a current customer, hey, I'm having these issues with your product. Well, hey, funny enough, we have an entire conference room set up with one of our engineers to go troubleshoot this stuff. Okay, boom, now they're right. So it's just things that kind of happen and go on. Cody, I don't know if you have any thoughts. I just went on a bit of like random tear, but on that.
No, that's good. I think the component here is you imagine it of all of these little signals, right? The event, the interaction that you have with individuals at the event could be one catalyst, but it also could be just one of many that make up the whole story and of your relationship with them. So tracking those, I think, is really, really important. It's how we build relationships.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's trying to get people's brains wrapped. Everybody wants this. And whether they believe it or not, it is this transactional mentality. And that's fine. There is some of that there. But I think it's, viewing it more in the long game and understanding that if you build relationships create pipeline. And honestly, you have your best shot at building a relationship with somebody face to face, one on one. It breaks down the barriers. I don't care how many Zooms you do, how many emails you exchange, how many Teams messages, Slack, whatever it may be. All that stuff is excellent. But when you get face to face, when you have breakfast, when you experience something, a hike, a keynote, a think tank session, a dinner, it's different. It just breaks down barriers, which is why events are such a good opportunity for us to network. So let's get into a few things on, right, event ROI and post-event management on what's working. What are things that are actually working here? So one is, I do think a hybrid integration in your approach is something that works. For example, we have done a hybrid integration. We have had people that come on the show here or are guests on the show here, which is virtual, that we then meet down the line in person at shows. I think it's incredible. I mean, some of the people that I've met, you feel like you know them when you meet them in person. It's crazy, the interaction, the warmth to it. And I think, as a strategy for companies, having the ability to host valuable virtual, whether it's information, education, think tank, I don't know, however you want to run it, tying that to your actual events is an approach when you talk post-event engagement, as well as returning ROI and kind of closing that loop. Two, I know Pablo will love this one. It's content repurposing. So it's the ability to create content from your events, pictures, video, whatever it may be, interviews, podcasts, webinar, panel discussions, demos, whatever it is that you're doing, recording them, content, create content. I think it's a follow-up mechanism, Cody, where you can give it back to people, right? You can give it back to them as a follow-up. And I think it's a really good way of kind of keeping touch. And then also it's just a great tool for developing marketing for down the line, as well as promoting yourself, your event, being in your exhibit space, whichever down the line. Third, I wrote here is personalization. So when you start talking about event ROI and post-event engagement, personalization is huge. We did a show on this. We talked about, speed to lead and all those things. And I frankly, look, there's a lot of tech, there's a lot of tools. If anybody needs a lead capture that attaches the CRMs, wants to know more about Zoom Info, Seamless AI, Apollo AI, all those things, like just ask Cody, right? Like we use a lot of those tools. They're all great. Everybody has a CRM, and I'm not going to push any tool or any lead capture or anything like that. I think you should be using them, but I think what's most important is the information. If I talk to Jane and we have this great conversation, and Jane's biggest burning problem is that she doesn't have a registration software for an event that she's running, and that's what's burning on her mind. Yeah, I might want to sell her a trade show booth or create a partnership with her, but that's not burning for her right now, right? But what can I do? Personalization to me is remembering that stuck in our conversation. That's what she needs. I want to build a relationship, so I want to give her what she needs. I want to give to get. So I'm following up saying, hey, this is A, B, and C. Here's who I'd recommend. You mentioned needing a registration software. Like, here is 2 clients that use this software A, software B. Here's their numbers, their email, call them, ask them about it, and then make a decision. I want to help solve problems. And I think that is a good example of personalization and follow-up, which knocks out both event ROI and post-event engagement. Fourth here, I love legit giveaways. I am probably a sucker. I have probably had arguments with Liz about the things that we've given away, but I just don't want to give away bullshit. If we're going to do a raffle, if you're going to come to my booth, she's laughing about the comment about Liz. It's true though. She thinks I'm crazy, but like, if I'm going to have someone come to the booth to do a raffle, to play a game, to engage with us, right? At one of the shows we did, we gave away a stay and play. So basically it was that whatever city or town that you lived in or near the closest major city to you, we were going to put you up for a weekend at like the high-end boutique hotel in that city with a dinner ticket and a breakfast ticket. And it crushed. Everybody wanted it. I mean, we had hundreds of people filling out forms for it, playing the game. And in a sense, they engaged with us. So it was expensive, couple nights in that hotel is a few $1,000s, but I'd rather spend a few $1,000s on that than spend half that or a few $1,000s on a bunch of random crap that nobody wants. Cause then it is a way of following up. It's something that's legitimized. So when I come back somebody to ask about the giveaway or update them on it, they're not really upset about it. So I love that one. One of my last ones that I love, and I keep using this one and I keep pounding and hammering it home. And it's something that when our clients allow us to dabble in this with them, we push it. And it is book meetings at the meeting for after the meeting. I cannot stress that enough. When you are there, when you are in conversation, don't tell them you'll follow up. Don't tell them, oh, I look forward to talking to you afterwards. No, right then and there. Hey, this like elephant in the room. This was a great conversation. I would love to set up time with you a week or two from now when you've gotten back. Hey, what do you have on your calendar? Can we set something up? Build a script, create some cues so people know how to do it. And I think it's a great objective for you and a team, call it at a trade show, to say, hey, we need to leave here with 20 meetings booked, not hoping, not asking afterwards. We need to leave with 20 meetings booked now. So it's on the calendar, so it's committed, so they know who we are, so the proper follow-up is done. And I think when you start talking about solving problems of event ROI and solving problems of post-event engagement, those are 1, 2, 3, 4, was it 5 of them that I gave there, Cody? Those would be some real big ones for me. I'm not going to go into event ROI in terms of how you quantify it, because we've gone that path before and it gets very complicated because everybody has a different CRM. Everybody has different, we'll call it MarTech. And then everybody has different goals and things that they're chasing and that they're going after.
Something that I think, I mean, this started it springs into mind this conversation that we had last week with some global event marketers at our EMC session. We do virtual sessions quarterly now. And the conversation was around post-event follow-up, but sometimes the team, right, that you have on hand don't, they just show up and who was Dia? She's like, nobody even reads my day of summaries of what to do, right? So it's all about the plans and the process and setting expectations and making sure that everybody's on task to actually execute it. Because all of these are great ideas, but how are you going to do it and how do you do it that works within your team, I think is really important there. And so, yeah, I'm a tool junkie, but I think it's all about being simple, keeping it simple, keep it very straightforward and quick follow-up. Even Harris mentioned that in there. When you have a hot lead, immediately send it over to sales, making sure that they're texting them or calling them right away. Or even better, get a call booked right away before they even leave.
We got a question, Cody, and I do want to touch on what Harris said here in the chat because I think it's really important. It's in line with what I said about the giveaway. It's slightly different, but very much so in line. He said, give out less swag. Don't keep it out in the open. Get better swag and hand it out only at the end of a good conversation. There's a science behind this. Could not agree more. Like just leaving a bunch of garbage out in bowls and then the boxes. How many times I've had clients be like, oh, I need a storage closet for all the junk. I'm like, hey, how about don't bring the junk? And then we don't have to build you a 400-foot storage closet or whatever it is. And, Harris, I would add into that when you say give away better swag, I couldn't agree more. I would use the term even in that better and more meaningful swag. So then that would lead me down the path of thinking, who are these people? Who is my customer? Who is the ICP? For example, we keep using it when we ran our own host event, but I do think it's a good example, not patting us on the back, but we had high-level event marketers come to an event that we hosted. We did not give away swag to them because they have seen more swag than anybody collectively on the whole planet. They don't care about it anymore. There's no thing that we're going to throw at them that they're going to be like, holy shit. I've never seen this before. This is incredible, right? There's no object thing. They've seen it all. They've done it all. So what we did was we told them, we're not going to waste your time with junky swag. And we decided to take the money that we would buy swag with and donate it to a local cause. And we picked 3 charities and we had them select the charity that they want. And then we made the donation in their name, right? So just a different approach, but we did that. And I'd have to ask people who went, how well did it hit? It felt like it hit well and people were very happy with it and liked it, but it's because of who the event marketers are. We didn't do that just to do it. we didn't do it because we're like, oh, this is a cool idea. We have lots of cool ideas. Everybody has lots of cool ideas. We did it because they're event marketers, and we did it based on them as an ICP. So you have to think about who your ICP is: male, female, older, younger, extroverted, introverted, right? Are they a bunch of salespeople, animals, right? Like, just like, you have to know, and then you can hit them with stuff that they're going to be like, wow, this is awesome. That's how I would go about swag.
Joni chimed in. She said that it hit well, and she brought up another good point that I was going to mention is the book, right? So
Yeah.
we did give a physical item, and that was the
Oh, we
book.
did. You're right. Yeah.
And I think that that really stood out too, and because it was something that they can take, read, apply to their
Yeah.
life, right?
Yeah, we gave, on the topic of swag, with what Harris said, we gave the book Unreasonable Hospitality, and we had the book signed by the author for everybody. It's an amazing book. I think selfishly I gave it away just because I love it, but it does also fit the bill for event marketers, who they are, what they need to do, right? Like, kind of the mission of this unreasonable hospitality when they're hosting events. So we had a question from Ashley. Ashley, thank you for the question. What are some pre-event marketing tips to get people to stop by? I feel like the giveaways and schedule a meeting just aren't working. Okay, so Ashley, let's talk about how to get people to stop by. My number one tip for how to get people to stop by is to put a plan together prior your show, well in advance of your show, and do it with sales. So if you have a sales team, whether it's regionalized, national, obviously, if it's a bigger sales team, you have to work with the director of sales, but you have to get down to the nitty gritty, to the granular of like, who are the ideal ICPs? Who are these people that you're already talking to that might be in pipeline, customers that you want to make sure you get with and that you meet with? And then from there, the thought process is, what's going to get them to come there? Because most people are not going to show up just to show up. So you can post all the things on Facebook that you want. You have to have a real offering. You have to have something that they're going to want to either come do that ties to an activity afterwards. Whether you come to the booth and you get some kind of golden ticket that they go through an exercise and you meet, and then that golden ticket gets you into the VIP dinner that has one of the keynotes that you've messaged that's going to show up and host the dinner with you, right? That's just I don't know. I just off the cuff type thing, but like, those are the stats. So that now when you're reaching out, Ashley, that's what you're offering them. You're not saying, come see me at booth 4508, right? Like, you're saying, hey, we've specially identified you. We'd like you to come over for this. Here's what we have going on. And then that will lead to this. And you're trying to throw stuff at them that is enticing. And again, that goes back to knowing your ICP and developing engagements, activities, and giveaways that they would appreciate and that they would like. I don't know if you have thoughts on that, Cody. That's your area there.
I just had a great conversation with one of our clients for an upcoming show in Q1. And obviously that's everybody's problem, right? How do we get people to the booth? And what it really comes down to is knowing the audience. Who are you meeting and what are the conversations that you're trying to have? Well, we came up with an idea of, let's make this entire theme. So not only are they going to be at the event, but they also have a private VIP dinner for 200 people at this exclusive restaurant afterwards. Yeah. Well, there's a couple stages. Before the event, the sales team is going to work closely with them in identifying who may or may not be there and give personal invitations. So it's going to be a physical invitation that they get mailed. And actually, it's funny that you mentioned the golden ticket, because then we're going to theme the entire event, trade show booth, and the post event all together. And it was something around a superhero theme, right? So it's all very like high luxury Hollywood superhero theme, where they get to go to the booth and play a game and have a conversation with them. But they are really drawing them in to get access to the VIP dinner, because that is where they're going to be able to network with others. They're going to bring in a speaker, one of, it's a big name that they know. And overall, then you see an entire theme, right? A holistic approach to the entire event, and you get your sales team involved. And one thing that we haven't touched on, but right before the event, this is where the sales team and the marketing team all have to come in together, prep some scripts, figure out the why, like what is the invite and the hook, and go and you log into the app. And as people are getting into the show app and starting to log in the day or two before, invite them, send personal
Mhm.
messages from each team member. You guys split the list up together, so that you're not all emailing or messaging the same person. But that kind of like guerrilla marketing has worked really, really well when you have both sales and marketing aligned.
I think Ashley on that, like I'm seeing stuff, from Harris saying to send half of a good gift, Jody saying to buy push notifications if there's an app or just use the app, right? Love what Cody's saying. Look, I think there's a lot of tactics, like there's a lot of ways of communicating the app, emails, phone calls, social media. Like you can name a million different conduits of communication, right? But I think at the end of the day, if you don't have something to offer and pique their interest, why should they come? Right? Because I say this all the time. People don't attend trade shows to buy your shit. They don't. They attend trade shows to solve problems that they have. They attend trade shows to network. They attend trade shows to learn. And they attend trade shows to be with their peers. I mean, that is all the data. That's what it says year after survey after survey. So there's nothing in there that says that they're attending there to come by or get in your pipeline, right? So I think the sooner that people start realizing that, that's where there's a little bit of gamesmanship. That's where the marketing comes in. So you could choose there's a lot of ways of communication, but I think the offering is huge. And that's something, honestly, if you're struggling with it and you want to reach out to us after the show, I mean, we would love to talk to you about it. And just, I would love to know, like, who is the client? What are the shows? Who are they? What kind of people? Why do they go to the shows? Is there an education track? Is there not an education track? Are they there? Like, what are they there? Like, what is the whole scenario? Because then I think that whole scenario can then come up. That's where you start plugging in ideas about, okay, we're going to take everything we know about them and try to come up with something that's a really good honey trap, right? Like something I'm going to want to wander over to. Harris just wrote, that's why paying for a big name speaker entertainer is not the most cost effective solution to draw attendees, which I couldn't agree more with. It's not always the case, right? So I could offer a million solutions, right? Can you run a off the show floor think tank session? I don't know. Maybe your people are there and that's what they're looking to do. And you're offering a VIP, say, hey, we're running a think tank, big whiteboard session. We're going to bring lunch in and we're going to get some of the smartest minds at the show in, I don't know, HR. And we're going to talk about A, B, and C topic. Is this something you're interested in? Right? Maybe that is because that's who they are and that's why they're there. So now they're coming in to do what they want to do, but you are the host, right? You are the conduit. So there's a million ways of viewing it. So yeah, that's a great question. We'll kind of shift gears here. All right. So what I want to get into here second is, and this ties in to some of the stuff. And I actually, my team had sent this to me on this topic today, and it was a LinkedIn post that I wrote that they felt kind of tied in. And what I was saying was, we're heading into the second season of trade shows, which is the fall, which is right now. It's as busy as it can be. Everything's up, running, and humming, right? And I just wrote that I'm seeing more and more marketing content creators talk about trade shows, not event people. I'm seeing marketing content creators on LinkedIn talk about trade shows. And I think why is because post-COVID, trade shows and events are really being solidified kind of quietly as a true sales and marketing channel. They really are, because they were missed and now we're heading back into them. So where I think what people are doing, and my point behind this was that marketing content creators are kind of bashing these events to a degree. They're pointing out all of the negatives. They're pointing out all of these nuanced things, and they're kind of leveraging being at the conference to showcase what's wrong with the conference. And, things like, the downfall of the badge scan focused, high cost to exhibitor sponsors, junky swag, which we talked about, comparing conference spend to running digital ads, not being able to quantify results. So what I think about that is that those are all decent points for sure, but they're low hanging fruit. There are shit that we've known for 10 years. It's low hanging fruits, nothing new. It might just be new to them because they're just now these content creators, mostly millennials and younger, that are now in the workforce and now doing marketing and driving, hopefully pipeline and revenue, which is what their job is. And they're attending these conferences like, what the hell is going on here? Right. Which I get. And I think that's all low hanging fruit. But what I started asking the question of is, people here know, if you've been on the event side, my question is, have you ever deployed $250,000 at an event and been asked to, drive results? Because it is a sales and marketing channel, and it just requires a different strategic thinking, right? Like a lot of the things that we talked about earlier, events are not a single point in time. There's many types of touch points at events. They're a catalyst for pipeline, right? We talk about pipeline impact, the different types, and how events can streamline those and push those through, not viewing it transactionally, building relationships. I think this gets missed quite often. But then what I rolled into is, as somebody that's been in events for 12 years now, I think the things that they should be pointing out, and the things that they should be crushing on, and the things that they should be saying, what is going on with events? One is that event execution often, if not always, lacks marketing campaigns. Always. I do not recall the last conversation that I was involved in with a client that came to us and we were working on a trade show booth or working on multiple trade show booths, and they said, hey, we have this really cool marketing campaign going on at our company. We want to fold it in. It doesn't happen, right? And that is because a bit of the plague in our industry is that events are separate from sales and marketing, and they're viewed as a cost of doing business, which is total bullshit. Because then the plight on them is that, oh, well, they don't produce any results. Well, you don't treat them that way. So why should they, right? The next is, I think there is a huge premium on being at conferences that your ICP is at, as well as saying no to the ones that they're not. Too many companies are going to conferences where their ICPs are not, and to where these clients are not wanting to really be engaged in that moment the way that they're wanting to. I don't really know how to describe it. Maybe they're not, I don't know, help me with this, Cody. They're not the buyers in the moment, right? Like a lot of times I hear from clients that they're going to events, but that's not my key stakeholder. That's not my buyer, right? So it's like, well, why are you there then? Because are you creating influence to the person that you work with? Or are you trying to influence your buyer? These are decisions that people have to make. And I think too often these companies are going to events that they shouldn't be at, and they're going because they've always been there.
I think that this is something that plagues the industry a lot, in the sense of, I mean, how many event marketers have just been told, hey, I want you to show up at this show at this date, build me something cool.
Yep. Always.
Right? Like,
Always.
and you have to go backwards from that. And this is really where, we're building this really cool framework, and I'm really excited to launch this with everyone in the next couple months. But right now we've been building this framework around having these conversations and how to turn your value of who you are into asking these questions, the elephant in the room. Why are we going to this show? How is this going to help us drive revenue? How is this going to hit our metrics in 2025? And of course, we all are creative event marketers and planners. We want to put on an excellent show. We want to do something that is just incredibly fun and cool and fancy. But how does that relate to the relationship building and touching with the ICP? And it's hard for event marketers when they're just kind of told what to do. I want everyone to feel empowered to ask the right questions and to be in the room when these decisions are being made.
Yeah. I was reading what Harris wrote here just before, and Harris, really appreciate your contributions on this, but he said events cannot be apart from sales and marketing if you expect them to be effective. And Harris, like, I couldn't agree more. I think that events are a sales and marketing channel, but the problem is people don't treat them that way. Then they expect them to produce a certain way, right? So it's kind of off and crazy. And so I think that needs to be a real organizational shift, executive leadership shift, pushing down to, there are a lot of event programs that do not have KPIs, metrics, goals, and things that they need to hit that have to do with pipeline and ROI and things like that, which is crazy to me. So of course the person is not thinking that way in that moment. All right, let me keep going with this list, right? Again, going back to, this post was written just because I see a lot of marketing content creators talking about trade shows, talking about events. I think they point out some very basic things and some super obvious low hanging fruit, but not the right things. Another thing to cut out is Part of the reason people keep going back to events is because face-to-face cuts through the noise and builds relationships faster, but only when done correctly. And that to me is a strategy within itself. Like if you don't have a strategy, like if you're just going to send your best salespeople to the floor, like I think that's such BS. If they don't have, like you mentioned earlier, Cody, scripts, if they don't understand the theme, the concept, what you're trying to do, how you're trying to move people from A to B to C, what's happening post show, it is an all encompassed strategy. So, but when done right, it can move the needle. The next one I wrote is that, we went through this, relationships equal pipeline. I genuinely believe that, right? When you get face to face, when you go through experiences, when you engage with somebody the right way, you spend time with them. I think it can do that, new ops, referrals, increase in customer spend, deal acceleration, old client resurgence, partnerships, distribution channels. You can go on and on of the type of pipeline that gets created. The next is that strategy is more important than planning. Planning is vital. It has to happen, right? But strategy is more important. You could plan something that lacks strategy and put all the time, energy, and effort and nail it, but it doesn't work. So you need the strategy. You need the things that we're talking about, understanding what kind of pipeline impact gets created, understanding why your customers are there, who those customers are, and how to reach them. This last one I wrote here, I wrote ideas, creativity, standing out, and delivering an experience is what's winning at events. I'll say it one more time. Ideas, creativity, standing out, and delivering an experience is what's winning at events. It absolutely is. It has never been easier because when you walk on the show floor, it is a parody of boredom. It is a parody of bad trade show booths, lack of engagement, no themes, bad branding. And then there's a couple standouts. There's some booths that people are like, wow, look at that. Man, they got a lot of people over there. Oh, I wonder what they did. You have to fight to stand out. You have to fight to be creative, be different, and ideas are important. And Cody does this for us a lot with our customers. What is the big idea? Because we're going to take that big idea and now we're going to run with it. We're going to design from it. We're going to strategize from it. We're going to do giveaways from it. We're going to host dinners with it. We're going to do everything is going to tie back to this big aha idea. Sometimes that idea lands, sometimes that idea doesn't, but the good ones do. And you got to go to the table with those ideas. The last thing I wrote in here is that events are not about leads, right? I feel like tracing back to what we said earlier about executives in leadership, and then what gets pressed downward is what gets executed. So what gets asked from the company and the people working from executives and leaderships is what drives the behavior. And that behavior has been leads, marketing qualified leads, MQLs, leads on the show floor. So what are people trying to do? They're trying to get as many badge scans as they can all the time. But that's not what's moving the needle, because then they're scanning all these badges. They don't know who's who. It's a lot of junk. It's a lot of garbage. I can name all the million things that happen that go wrong from it. One, it goes to sales and sales is like, this is a bunch of bullshit. I don't need this stuff, right? Two, they don't have a follow-up strategy. Three, they don't have a way of engaging those leads. So they just scan them. Four, the impression is not made because they don't have the proper, booth theme concept. They're not offering them anything in terms of experience. Because I think that events are a strategy within a much larger strategy. Right? A much larger strategy that the CMO, the company, marketing and sales are trying to execute. Events is a piece of it. And just getting a whole bunch of leads, not moving the needle. So I think it starts at the top. I would love to see executives in leadership say, hey, we are deploying, I don't know, $2-3 million of capital. I don't care if it's 500,000 a year. That's still a good spend for some companies. What is being made of it? And then trying to decipher down into what is important. The same way that when you're in marketing and sales, the growth rate of the company is important, right? The same way that your win rate is important. Companies need to start figuring out what's important for events and then pressing down and incentivizing that to the people running them and creating them. And part of the reason why leads is being as important is part of the reason why a lot of people, when they come to us, they're like, yeah, just give me a great design at a really good price. Because they're not thinking about all these other things because they're not being asked to do it. It's not deemed important at this point in time. And then that's
I just
my,
popped in
that's
a
me off
link
my soapbox. Yeah.
to, no, that's good. I just popped in a link to Revenue Vitals, which is one of my favorite podcasts. We talk about it a lot, Chris Walker. And I was just listening to an episode right before this about connecting, marketing and the financials, right? Those two
Yeah.
departments. And even within that episode, they even talk about the importance of events. And I think that the reason why I like this podcast specifically is it helps reframe your mind to think of all of the other departments outside of the event marketing department and how and it allows your brain to just be a little bit more creative at how you can make that impact and how you can communicate with other directors and coworkers in making sure that it all is aligned and it all makes sense. It's all about making impact. So you guys are always welcome to email us too if you ever want to
Yeah.
brainstorm. I put my email in there, or you can connect with us on LinkedIn. But the goal here is to support you along the way, right? With your careers and what you're doing and building strategies and how to think differently and make a bigger impact within your company.
I think it also helps us, in all honesty, like
Oh,
hearing from
thousand
people.
percent.
And I mean, half of the insights are from insights, or at least where me personally, I'm trying to connect dots, and Cody and I and our sales team and like all the conversations we have is really stemmed around those conversations, the podcast, the Q&A we run with people. So anything that comes in gives us more insight, allows us to, go down a path. All right, question from Harris. Harris, thank you. It says, so you think it's important to measure events the same way that you measure other marketing programs at the same company? Your thoughts? Yeah, Harris. I mean, I would say, why wouldn't you? Right. So it kind of goes back to what I said earlier, is like, what is important? Like, I think you're going to have some KPIs and you're going to have some objectives at your event that are probably not the same as other marketing programs. Like, right. Like, how many meetings did you book? How much pipeline was created from that event? Maybe it's some kind of touch point. We talk a lot about a tag. So tagging really good conversations. So those things I think would be specific to events. But yeah, I mean, if you're talking how to measure marketing and develop ROI, I think you should be thinking about, right, what is your spend? And then what is the return on that spend? Cody does this for us. So, I mean, she can touch on it, but I would definitely agree that it should be measured similarly and viewed similarly.
It goes back to the why. Why are we even investing in this event? Who are we trying to touch on? And what are the metrics that we're going to track along the way? Is it certain signals, right? The tags? Is it conversations? Is it meetings held? Is it, an upsell from an existing client, where they get to add on or drive their LTV? But there is really no reason to not, actually. I think it would be hurting your event programming if you're not holding the event programming to the same tracking and KPIs as you would with marketing it. They all fit into the same big goals that your company has to drive revenue for sure.
And I would wonder on that, Harris, like that has me thinking, like, I know companies all do it differently, but what are they tracking? What is important when it comes to the marketing for them? And then, I think there's ways that that it could be tracked similarly, but also ways that it could be tracked differently. Right. I think it just
There's
depends.
always going to be intangibles,
Yeah.
right? There's always going to be things, even in a marketing strategy, there's always certain things that you can't completely track. You can't, and so you have to have a balance of both for sure.
Maisha has a question here. She said,
Yeah.
how do you get clients to understand they should be measuring their event success? Yeah. I mean, that's the $1,000,000 question, right? So, Maisha, my thought on this is kind of what I said a little earlier, is that I think it starts at the top of an organization, right? So if the top of an organization, executives and leadership, are not holding the events department or holding the leadership of events and marketing accountable to say, hey, we spent $1,000,000 this year, what has come of it, right? If they are not doing that, then why is the event department going to want to measure the success of their events? They don't have to. They're not being held accountable. It's not deemed important. What's important to them from marketing is how many leads that they scanned. But is how many leads that they scanned really measuring the success of their events? No. So Now, how you have that conversation, I don't know. It's tough. Look, I actually literally today wrote a post about it, about how not everybody's going to want to have this conversation. Not everybody's going to want to engage this way. Some people just want to go to the event and do what they've done, and they need their booth and they want it to subjectively look good to them. And they're going to go from there and they have it figured out, and that's fine. But I think, to answer your question, asking good questions. So when we start talking about measuring it and creating ROI and setting yourself up strategically to get results, and someone says, "Hey, I don't really need to worry about that," my question would be, "Hey, do you mind if I ask, what is your strategy right now? And what are the results that you're garnering from your shows?" Because if somebody cannot answer that, even if they can answer it at a surface level, it's good. Well, hey, we go to this show and we typically drive about $500,000 in pipeline. What happens with it? I'm not really completely sure just yet. Even that's better than nothing. But I find that most people can't answer anything. So for me, it's asking questions that make sense like that to maybe get them self-actualizing. Like, wow, that really does make sense. Like, oh, we're deploying $1 million a year towards 3 events, and like, we don't know what kind of success we're having from it. So if you don't know what kind of success you're having, what are you doing there? I mean, what are you doing? Like, what, you're just there to be there. You're there to get drinks at night. You're there to listen to the keynote. Like, why are we going through all this time, this energy, this effort, this branding, this booth, these headaches, these tchotchkes, the whole shebang? I would argue that you probably shouldn't even be doing it. So I think it's asking insightful questions that would lead somebody to kind of self-actualize, like, yeah, that really does sound important. Can you tell me more about that? How would we do that differently? And I think doing it differently kind of goes backwards into talking about, like, well, let's just get you hitting some basic objectives first. Let's just have you go to a show and say, I want to accomplish objective A, B, and C, right? I want to get 40 people to our dinner. I want to hold 150 demos, and I want 100 of those to be with what we would call an A-B type client. Okay, let's just start with 2 simple objectives. And then you get done and you track it and you're like, wow, we hit those. We did 60 people at the dinner and we did 120 demos for A-B leads. Okay. Well, then wouldn't that make your mind think, like, well, what happened from that? Because that objective is going to lead to the goal. The goal is going to lead to the ROI, right? It moves down the line. People aren't even doing the beginning basic of it to understand. So I think it's asking smart, self-actualizing questions. And then I think the last piece is that, just know that not everybody's going to be down for it, right? We have more requests for people saying, can you show me a nice design and tell me what the price is, than you could possibly imagine. It happens. It is what it is. So, that's the nature of it. But I think it's trying to get people's brains flipped a little bit. And then it is hoping that over time, the narrative that events are a sales and marketing channel and that they have to be treated and executed and strategized as such continues to grow. Because when you talk to really sharp event people, they get it, they know it. And I will say, as a shining light, there is a lot of, we have huge success stories with our customers. We have a customer that came to us 2 years ago, and I don't know the exact numbers, right? Cody, I'd have to get with Lance on it. I don't know if you know, but they were driving it was like 50 leads and X amount of pipeline. And then we pitched them this whole spiel. We're like, what's important to you? And they're like, we need double the leads and we need double the pipeline because we'll close X%. Like, they knew their shit a little bit. We started having conversations about the customer, took them through the process, redesigned the booth, created some engagements, talked to them about how to execute inside of this booth, and bang, what happens? Double the leads, double the pipeline, more return. They're ecstatic. They want to add a show. They want to spread the wealth, do it in more things. They want to change it up, tweak it. How can we get better? And now they're crushing it. So
Yeah,
it is
executives are bought in. They're
Yep.
throwing more budget at it.
Yes. There is open-minded people. Yes.
They're expanding it to beyond just the event and doing, offsite dinners and VIP things. Like,
Yep.
they're seeing the importance of it for their audience, and it makes a huge impact. This is a great conversation.
Yeah, let's end on that note. That was really good. Cody, thanks for doing this with me. Thanks for chiming in.
Harris, Jody, Maisha,
Yeah,
everyone, thank you
Harris,
so much for
Farah,
chiming in and asking questions.
Jody, Wendy, good seeing everybody here. Aisha, nice to meet you. Thanks for coming in here. Great time today. Appreciate everybody being here. All right, everybody. Thanks for being here. We'll talk to you soon.